Great to have you back, Cam. Coming off of your bye week. The Seahawks were coming off of their bye week, and they had all that time to talk about time and why it always takes such a long time for the offense to get going. And then what happened against the New York Giants yesterday? Same old thing. Senator Corker said that President Trump coming to Capitol Hill, which we've been talking about, is basically just a photo op. That seemed to set off the president on Twitter.
Steve, what's the latest?
Yeah, David and Amanda, KING5 sources tell me the former Husky star was shot while at an outdoor gathering in the Los Angeles metro area. Multiple sources say he is doing okay and is back in the Seattle area tonight. Police are not providing details right now, but a source tells me he was an innocent bystander in what may be a gang-related shooting. And what they do is they bring in celebrity chefs, not just from Seattle, but from all over the world, to show you how they prepare the foods that have helped make them famous. I happen to speak Portuguese because my wife is from Brazil, so the quote that they picked from him is when he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man. He's a sick puppy. In Portuguese, that translates as O meninozinho do foguete, ele é cachorrinho doente. It rhymes. What can I say? Chance for us to check off a lot of bucket list things. I just fed a walrus. We're hanging out with tigers.
I know.
6:33 now. Israeli police were deployed in Jerusalem after Palestinian factions called for a, quote, day of rage. This is in response to President Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. It also comes on the heels of the overwhelming UN vote yesterday, 128-9, denouncing the United States for that declaration, ignoring President Trump's threat to cut off funding to nations that okayed the resolution. U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley says the United States, quote, will be taking names. All right, let's take you above the fold here at 6:34, and we'll start with some local papers, and I want you to see what we have from USA Today at the end of the segment here. But let's start with the Central Kitsap reporters, because they do have a story on updating the condition of the two Bremerton police officers who were shot by a suspect of domestic violence a couple days ago. Their names are Alan McComas and Kent Mayfield. And Kent Mayfield is the father of Travis Mayfield, as part of the morning news team at Q13. And so from all of us here, we wish you and your family, both families, the best and a speedy recovery. The Snoqualmie Valley Record has a story on their front page. This woman here in the van, her name is Tanya Ginn. She's just one of the volunteers with the Trail Youth, which serves about 60 children in need. They've had a weekly coffee stand up for a year. Every week they give out donuts, coffee when it's cold, hats and gloves. Again, they've been doing that for 365 days. And now USA Today, they first of all have a story about Amtrak's reputation nationally and the impact that our crash in Western Washington has had on that. And then to lighten it up here, they've got the 10 best new TV shows from this past year. And Joyce, I think two of your favorite made their top three. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you watch Handmaid's Tale, right?
Yep.
Yep. And Big Little Lies, you watch that too?
Yep.
So you were on top of it. Two of the top three in the country. Joyce is on, and I got to get my butt in gear. Here's Africa, Europe, and here's Spain, and it's the northeast corner of Spain, as you mentioned. And it's a region about the size of the state of Maryland, and about 6 million people live there. An actual decibel meter, and this time I found out how to use it right, so we'll see who's the loudest today. We can crown an unofficial KING5 Mornings champion. You guys ready to bring it? 6:20 on KING5 Mornings. Let's play Monday morning quarterback. Stop me if you've heard this one before. The Seahawks overcome another slow start to win. Sunday in San Francisco against the one-win 49ers. Russell Wilson's passer rating in the first half, 32.8. That's bad, really bad. Player of the game was probably Bobby Wagner, the linebacker. Look at this early interception, just ripping the ball from the 49er. Led to a short Russell Wilson touchdown run. Third quarter, Wilson hooks up with the third-string tight end, Nick Vannett, who was subbing in because Luke Wilson got hurt. Then in the fourth quarter, the first-string tight end, Jimmy Graham, with a touchdown catch. The Seahawks win it 24-13. Next up, they host the 10-1 Eagles on Sunday Night Football. That's a huge game right here on KING5. And you see they've got the Techno Thursday celebration, they call that. Well, in the offseason, the NFL relaxed its rules on celebration. So here in 2017, we've had a ton of great ones. Yesterday alone, check out a bunch of them. We start with the Philadelphia Eagles against the Chicago Bears, and former Bear Alshon Jeffrey, the touchdown catch. What does he do? He goes bowling, and his teammates are the pins. Watch them topple over. I love that one. Then the Falcons against the Buccaneers, Atlanta star Julio Jones. Great touchdown. And then the celebration, what does he do? Jousting with his teammate, and gotcha, and he falls down. How about the Tennessee Titans taking on the Colts? Delanie Walker, not only the touchdown catch in the end zone, but then performing CPR on the ball. Love that. And finally, in the Buffalo Bills-Kansas City Chiefs game early on, Buffalo's Zay Jones, great name, Zay Jones, the touchdown, and his quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, namaste. All these guys putting the fun back in the so-called no-fun league. Rich, namaste.
Namaste. Good morning for
They
that.
missed that. It was off camera. We should do it again.
There we do it. There we go.
Rich, namaste.
Namaste.
That is John Lopez, a popular sports radio host in Houston, driving a boat around on Monday on what used to be streets, using Twitter to find people who were stranded. The boat wasn't even his. Just before that moment, he had tweeted this: "Message me if you have a boat. I'll pick it up." Two of his Twitter followers stepped up with boats, and after 10 hours, Lopez had rescued some 20 strangers. The story went viral in Houston and then nationally. USA Today picked it up as well. And now John Lopez joins us on the phone here in Seattle. Water. People who have stored away drinking water, you've gone and you got your supplies. When disaster strikes, you'll be at a major advantage, but also some risk as neighbors around you search for sustenance. Well, on any island, Vashon Island, Bainbridge Island, or here on Mercer Island where I grew up, that crisis is even more dire because there is simply no way to get fresh water onto an island. The jury found Kelly stole millions of dollars from thousands of clients decades ago. According to the Seattle Times, in 2015, he became the first state official indicted in more than 40 years. He was tried last year, but it ended in a hung jury. Sentencing from this verdict is set for March, and Kelly faces 20 years in prison. So we have two challenges. One, how I do with my chopsticks, which should be pretty good. I'm usually all right. And two, not spilling the food and embarrassing my wife.
Oh, that's impressive,
here we go.
Steve.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there it is.
This is so good. Just having been laid off from my last job in TV in Houston, I know what they're going through, and it's tough. And a lot of people are wondering, well, why would ESPN, they're so successful, why are they laying off 100 people? And the answer is this thing called cord cutting, which people have heard about, but I don't know if everyone gets it. This is a lot of you who are just dumping cable TV and then turning to Netflix or Amazon streaming devices like that. You say, I got a $200 cable bill, I don't want all these channels, I'll just go to Netflix and Amazon. Well, most networks get about $1 or even less per subscriber. So TNT, Lifetime, Oprah, you get about $1 per subscriber. ESPN gets $7 per subscriber. So your cable bill, $7 of it goes to ESPN. Well, they've lost 20 million subscribers, people, the last 5 years. 100 million people. That's $700 million in lost revenue in the last 5 years alone. So the network says they got to cut either salary or TV rights. So let's say they give up a Pac-12 deal for football or ACC basketball or international soccer. You could save $100 million. But if you do that, then ESPN isn't as valuable because it doesn't have soccer, doesn't have SEC football, doesn't have whatever they're going to cut. So the other thing to do is to cut salary. So it's this vicious cycle that has now cost 100 people their jobs today. A lot of them are friends of mine. The good news is that in Houston, Texas, the George R. Brown Convention Center, we have reports that they at one point were hosting as many as 9,000 people, Jake and Joyce. And now that is down to 2,600. So in terms of evacuees who had no place to go, they're in some FEMA housing that FEMA's paying for in hotels nearby, or they found family and friends who can house them. But still, in some parts of Houston, the water is actually now coming in. Take a look at this. The map here that we've got up between Beaumont there on the right of your screen in Houston. And what I'm going to do is show you the traffic and watch what happens. These are the road closures. Think about people trying to get out, and over the past few days we've talked about why couldn't Houston just evacuate? If this this set of interstates had been filled with people bumper to bumper and then the floods had hit, imagine the devastation and destruction.
Steve is going to be celebrating with his family. Happy Hanukkah to you.
Thank you so much. So I'm no rabbi, but we're going to take a crack here at what we're calling Hanukkah 101. All right, it starts tonight. Religiously, it's not actually one of the most important Jewish holidays, but because it falls around Thanksgiving and Christmas, it seems that way for a lot of us here in America. What it does is it celebrates Hanukkah, the victory by Judah and the Maccabees over their oppressors around 200 BCE, way before KING5 mornings. So you can spell it a lot of ways, but the two most common ways are with a CH at the beginning or an H, one N, 2 Ks. There are really any number of combinations, but these are the most common. So a lot of people know you've got 8 crazy nights, like Adam Sandler would say. And when the Maccabees, the reason is because when they took over the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, they only had enough oil to burn the lights there for 1 night. But the so-called miracle of Hanukkah is that the oil lasted for 8 nights. So we light this candelabra called a menorah that's got a commemoration for that. And you might say, but hey, Steve, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then there's 9. Yes, because there's a special one that lights all the other candles in a special kind of order. So what kind of foods do we eat? Well, oil-based foods because of the oil we talked about. So donuts and latkes, which are basically potato pancakes, and they're often served with applesauce. I don't know why, but I just know it tastes good. There's a Seattle twist to this because it's former Seahawks quarterback Sean Salisbury who hosts a national sports radio show based in Houston, and I was his partner on that show for the last couple of years before I moved back home to Seattle here at KING5. He was one of the first, if not the first person to take video, to walk up to the Lakewood Church and take video and pictures of it and show America that it was accessible. And he joins us now live from Houston by phone. A Mercer Island man is suiting up for the red, white, and blue this week in a wheelchair. With 10,000 athletes competing, the 20th annual Maccabi Games in Israel is the third largest sporting event in the world. Mark Spitz and Kerry Strug are among past participants for Team USA. Mike Schiller's journey there is a different kind. Mike Schiller has always been a hoops addict of the highest degree, but he didn't always play this far below the rim. 12 years ago, his life started to change.
Thought he had a back problem, so he went and got back surgery, and our impression was that that was going to fix everything.
Surgery relieved the pain, but not the symptoms.
And the doctor says to Don, is your husband always this spastic? Don looked at him
like behavior-wise?
Yeah, kind of. He kind of is.
In fact, Mike would soon be diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a nerve-destroying disease that, as of today, has no cure.
We were driving away, and I was in tears, and Don was in tears, and we had to share it with our kids.
The physical deterioration with MS is gradual and unrelenting. It has robbed Mike of almost all the feeling in the left side of his body.
Very little feeling, very little muscle mass.
And yet, overcoming his ego proved even harder than overcoming his immobility.
He was willing at that point to go look, but he wasn't going to get in a chair.
I can tell you, Steve, the lowest point for me, the absolute lowest, and I'll never forget it, but I was in an airport, and I was running behind for a flight, and I'm not moving very well, and I took a spill. I mean, I go over, my backpack goes flying, I'm flat on my face, and all of a sudden there's a crowd of people trying to help me up. And all I wanted to say was, get the heck off of me. Leave me alone.
For a gym rat, not being able to run and gun is bad enough. For a gym rat with a hoops-loving son, it is worse.
It's still hard for me, as Marcus doesn't remember, I'm going to get teary-eyed here, doesn't remember me playing basketball. And it hurts a little bit to know that he never got to see that part of me.
It's been hard just because I know if I was in his shoes when I'm older, that'd be the hardest thing for me, you know, not being able to play sports with my kid. It's hard also for me, not being able to play with him.
2 years ago, his wife finally convinced Mike to try out wheelchair basketball. And wouldn't you know it, the moment he started bleeding was the moment he started believing.
My chair and I went over, and my head split open, and got a nice, number of stitches here. Everyone around me is like, oh my God, it's a pool of blood on the ground. And I remember thinking, I'm a friggin' athlete. I'm competing,
Just a year later, Mike Schiller is competing for Team USA in the World Maccabi Games in Israel, essentially the Jewish Olympics. It's true, his life is different than he imagined. The on-court dynamic that defines so many father-son relationships has in some ways been reversed.
When Michael doesn't push himself, Marcus holds him accountable too. Sorry, you don't get any free pass just because you're in a wheelchair.
Of the biggest things I've learned from watching him is how to face adversity head on.
It wasn't a matter of just saying, oh, I've got MS, my life is over, or I'm giving up. We continue to fight. I want them to see that even with basketball, that I'm not giving up, I'm continuing to fight.
When Sandra enlisted, women in the Navy weren't even assigned pants, only skirts. While she was fighting for equality stateside in the Navy, Bill paid an unspeakable price for his service in the Army. On May 9th, 1972, his Cobra helicopter gunship was shot down, and he became the very last American soldier taken prisoner in the Vietnam War.
Restaurant for some 40 years.
Right now, a new phone scam targeting T-Mobile. Customers are finding that their numbers have been stolen from them and used to transfer money out of their bank accounts. So here's how it works. The crooks get your cell phone number, hack the system so that SIM card inside gets rerouted to a different device. And that way they get the text messages with verification codes for your account instead of you. In one case, it took just 6 minutes for the thieves to reset the password to a Wells Fargo account, enroll in a money transfer service, and then boom, transfer $2,500.